Sometimes people want to reduce their mortgage in bankruptcy. There are several things that one can do. First of all, if you have a second mortgage, let's say you have a home equity loan, which is really a second mortgage. People don't realize it's a mortgage, but it's a mortgage. So let's say you have a house that's worth $300,000. Your first mortgage is you owe $300,000 on your first mortgage, so it equals the value of your house. And then you have a second mortgage on top of that, a home equity loan for, say, $125,000. One thing you can do in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy is make a motion to the court to actually strip off that second mortgage. So it becomes like a credit card debt. It becomes dischargeable. It's no longer a lien on your house. This is a very powerful tool. It applies only in a situation where your first mortgage is equal to the value of your house or exceeds the value of your house. And many people are in that situation. You have a house worth $300,000 and you owe $325,000 on your first mortgage, and then you have a second mortgage on top of that. That's a perfect situation. It's called a pond motion. And with the pond motion, we will strip off your second mortgage. So that's a wonderful benefit in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. But sometimes you don't have a second mortgage, you just have a first mortgage, and it's too much, the payments are too high. A number of years ago, the bankruptcy court instituted a program called the Loss Mitigation Program. You've heard of modifying your mortgage. People go to the bank and apply for modifications. Well, this is a modification program done through the bankruptcy court, and it's presided over by the bankruptcy judge. And the great advantage of a modification program in bankruptcy is, well, first of all, what are you trying to accomplish? Typically, the banks are not going to write off your mortgage. If you owe $200,000 principal, it's very unusual for them to reduce that. It happens sometimes, but not very often. But what can happen is the mortgage that you have can be changed. So instead of paying 5% over 20 years, it can be modified that your interest rate goes from 5% to 2% over 40 years. And that gives you a dramatic reduction in the amount of money you have to pay every month to keep that roof over your head. And in the loss mitigation program in the bankruptcy court, you and the bank, your lawyer and the bank's lawyer will meet in front of the judge and go through a process and try to structure such a modification for you. And it's a much more professional approach than going to the bank and doing it yourself. Now, some people do go to the bank and they make the application for modification and they're successful, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're in bankruptcy already, you might as well do a loss mitigation program in the courts. You'll find it to be much more professional. The banks are held to a higher standard. The banks, if they play games or if they lose papers or if they act in any way which is less than absolutely professional, the court, the judge will hold the bank's feet to the fire, so you have more protection, and I found it to be a much more professional approach. So those are some of the alternatives that are available to you when you're trying to restructure your mortgage in the context of having a bankruptcy also.